Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. Cesar Delgado was our student at Central Connecticut State University and a participant in the Traveler's Edge program almost 15 years ago when he started. So it's wonderful to reconnect with someone who strove so hard as he did, finish his bachelor's degree and to start a career with Travelers, and now as an underwriter with Travelers in an area that he'll explain in our conversation. It just really feels great to see someone who you remembered being quite unsure why they're even going on to a bachelor's degree now with so much verve and enthusiasm and so much poise as he's doing the very challenging work of underwriting construction projects in Florida, in Puerto Rico, in the Virgin Islands. So yes, this is another one of my former students. And yes, I'm bragging. I am bragging on behalf of Central and Travelers, because this is a result that we gave so much to achieve with those students. So here he is, the successful Cesar Delgado. Cesar Delgado just told me it's been 14 years since he and I met at Central Connecticut State University. I was sponsoring and happily sponsoring a wonderful relationship with the Travelers companies. It was focused on empowering dreams. You remember these things? For graduation and employment. And Cesar was one of the early cohorts that came through. And I certainly tried my best to be of service to these very high potential people, but who had, by virtue of the scholarship, real challenges financially and otherwise that they had to overcome to even see their way into a career at Travelers and or the industry. So let's go back before you and I met and before you started in what Capital called, what we call Edge, but what they called, I can't remember. What was going on in your life before you came into this opportunity to become, as you are today, a very successful Travelers leader?
Yeah, so thank you for those compliments, Dr. Fearon, and thank you for the opportunity and for always sharing your wisdom with me and my Edge peers, that your wisdom still serves today. So I thank you for that. So yeah, certainly 14 good years, way before I started at Capital under the Capital Crossroads to Careers program.
That's what it is.
Yes, I was working as a security guard and at a hotel, really close to both Travelers and the Marriott. So that was my job before applying for the C3 program. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. And so I was working 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning, and then going to school and trying to learn English between that. Yes.
Had you come directly from Puerto Rico to start there in Hartford?
That is correct. Yes, I came from Puerto Rico and started at Capital, and I applied for the ESL, the English as a Second Language program, at Capital, and one of the faculty members of the ESL program, who's still my friend today, Nancy Cardigan, have shared with me this program that Travelers is launching. And that was C3, that was Capital Crossroads to Careers, and then Edge.
With, so that's how I learned. Paid internships, which was even more amazing. Scholarship, yes, but paid internships where you would be looking across the street from your hotel at this wonderful company. And now she's saying, hey, there's a chance you could work there and be an intern there.
Yes, I will always be grateful to Nancy. I have a lot of good Nancys that are good in my life, but this Nancy particularly changed my life completely. She saw that I was struggling because I was also working for her as an assistant through the study program, through the paid study program. So she noticed that I was working 10 to 6 going to school, and then doing part-time for her. So I was pretty much doing a lot, trying to maintain myself financially, and having the paid internship introduced to my life changed my life, because then I had to focus only on the internship and my academics. So
and
amazing.
You actually got to sleep.
That's right, exactly, because I was working 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning.
I was trying to figure out
I
when.
will always be grateful to that. Always.
When did you sleep? But was she that drive to achieve something that you came from Puerto Rico to do? I'm sure made a huge difference. You had to overcome a language barrier. You had a cultural, certainly a lot of cultural adaptation into that urban area of Hartford, and then through the whole Capital Community College systems and all the busyness and change. And then what we do, we come over from Central Connecticut, which is only 15 miles down the road, but it could have been on the other side of the earth for a lot of you folks. Said,
right,
come and finish your bachelor's degree. You remember making that leap over from driving that long 50? Well, you didn't. You took the bus, I think, to come over there to get the.
Yes. It was about 15 to 20 minutes drive to New Britain. But it was always very high energy situation, because I was coming right off from Travelers, working as an intern, going to school, and probably going to my tutor sections that you set up for me to pass my statistics courses that always challenged me so much. So I was always very, my adrenaline was very high all the time. So I took those 15 minutes to talk with Mom in Puerto Rico and just make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And our 2 or so years went very fast, and other groups of edge cohorts were coming through, and I've a number of them now. I've loved tracking down, as I have you, and saying, let's talk about then and now. We've talked about then, and I think you were a real credit to us as a student, and you helped a lot of the others as they were coming through. But then I think I told you just before we started the recording that I remember somehow being out in front of the Travis buildings with you. We were walking along and you were saying, I said, well, what's your plan next? You remember it's graduation, then employment, and Travelers was there offering you choices. Remember, why did you make the choice to come down to Florida when Connecticut is so lovely and nice all year round? I just answered my own question.
It is lovely, cozy, and I met the greatest people in Connecticut that's still my friends today.
Oh, yeah.
And my father lives there. So I will always have a connection with Connecticut. And the reason why I decided to move to South Florida was because I'm from Puerto Rico, Dr. Fern. So I like the warm weather. That was primarily the reason, right? Because quite honestly, I didn't know what I was getting into in terms of my job responsibilities. But I knew I wanted to be in a warm weather and closer to Mom, really, closer to Puerto Rico. So those were the 2 reasons why for Lauderdale, really. Yeah.
But someone helped you. I think you mentioned again before we started recording that there's a person who really helped you get to that, make that part of your employment dream come true.
Yes.
Someone in HR.
Absolutely. Yes. Something that will always describe me, that I would speak my mind respectfully, and I will voice my opinion. And I was having a very honest conversation with my former mentor, Cheryl Cossack, who is the VP of Human Resources here at Travelers. And I said, I like what I do up in here in Hartford, but I'm getting tired of the weather. So I need to find a different opportunity down south. Well, I would quite honestly consider looking for other places to work at. And her answer was very honest as well. She was like, you going nowhere. let me contact you with the HR generalist of the Orlando office. And I contacted this gentleman who retired, Rich Sonone, and he was the one who contacted me with my manager today. And that's how my journey started here in Florida. Yeah.
That could have been a really crucial moment, couldn't have it? Cheryl could have said, "Oh well, I understand, and good luck. And if you want a letter of recommendation." No, she saw that travelers needed you, and hopefully she wanted you to need travelers. So that was one of those crucial moments, similar to the ESL teacher saying, "Hey, Cesar, you've got a work ethic and an intention to grow and learn that I think C3 would be very good for you." And along the way, I think several people, hopefully some from Central as well, said, "You have the ability to fulfill your prospects."
I will always be grateful to those people. Always.
So
yes.
let's talk about how you're fulfilling those prospects. What is the role that you have now? Again, give me that title because I've already forgotten it. Short-term memory goes out these earphones. And what sort of work are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
So essentially, my role, Dr. Ferron, I'm an underwriter for Travelers Bond Construction Services. Construction Services is the business unit within Bond and a specialty insurance. So the official title is Account Executive Officer, which really manages a book of business of general contractors, where we analyze what we call the 3 C's. So we analyze the capacity of that general contractor, the construction company. We analyze their financial statements and their character, which is an important part of our investigation, analysis, underwriting. So wear many hats, and I'm grateful for that.
I kind of understand the first 2 C's, but how do you, as an underwriter, how do you get a sense of character?
Yeah, I think it comes through the years. I mean, I would say the first few years, most of the things were over my head. Quite honestly, I never found finance as an interesting trade. I found it boring when I was at CCSU, which is why I struggle so much with my statistics and my finance courses. But now, 14 years later, I love it. And I think finding that character definition comes with listening to the customers, observing, and making sure you have a good retention. You have a good mind that you can remember what people tell you at some point. And it will come through the years. I think another aspect to that is your gut feeling. I think you'll develop that as you go through this business. But it's interesting. It's a very interesting aspect to analyze, because some people may have tell you something that is not correct. So you sort of have to find your way and assess that character, whether it's through technology or just by being in the face of the customer.
Do you go out on press when there is a potential insurer company? Do you go out in the field and walk and talk, or are they that close, or is a lot of this done remotely particularly because of the pandemic?
Yes. Prior to the pandemic, you are right. We go to the field, we go to their facilities. There are some cases that we might visit their construction projects, which is the most interesting part, because you get to learn a little bit about engineer. So that's always very interesting. But yes, you go to their offices, you have lunch with them, and you sort of become part of their family, really, because we are an important aspect of their business. But that was prior to the pandemic. Post-pandemic, for the past 2 years and a half, a lot of Zoom meetings like the one we're doing right now. So a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of calls. And I'm resuming, I will say that I'm doing my first trip post-pandemic. I will say, I mean, we're still in a pandemic, but you get my point. In a couple of weeks. So in a couple of weeks.
We've got a lot more immunity, thank God, in the country right now. So I think you will be safer to do that. So I had to learn quite a lot about the overall business of travelers, and particularly property and casualty. I understand underwriting is a hugely important aspect of their business. Some might argue that it's the core of their ability to provide a quality product to make sure their claims are paid and so forth because of the way they underwrite. But I've also understood that underwriting is a team effort. Talk a little bit about your team. Even though you've been remote mainly, have you been able to have that kind of team effort so that you can have people look over your work and say, well, maybe, and you can look over their work. Some of that nice natural helping that I really valued when I used to send students over to Travelers. You will not learn alone. You will not be working alone. Is that true of your situation now?
Absolutely, yes. And underwriting, it is certainly the core of our business. But yes, we are teamwork 100% all the time in underwriting. It takes a village. Sometimes you have to make quick decisions within your authority. Mm-hmm. But in most of the cases, the collaboration happens pretty much all the time. Before the pandemic, we'll meet with our partners internally and make decisions on underwriting matters. And during the pandemic, a lot of Zoom meetings as well. So there's never a situation where you have to find yourself being alone by making a decision. Always collaboration is encouraged, and it's actually part of our best practices.
Oh, I'm glad you added that point, because I think that is almost an assurity if you're in the assurance business. But to be able to say that it's very high on our list to be collaborative these days with the challenges of remote work. I've had other conversations with other folks where that has been stretched too thin, and they have felt somewhat alone and yet the decisions they're making are quite consequential. So in your case, you still have held that together, which is great.
In fact, I think I'm a big proponent of virtual scenarios and virtual meetings. It doesn't apply in all cases, but most of the cases it does apply. And I think I collaborated way often than ever before during the pandemic, because I think people are, you can get to them quicker, I believe. You just send them an IM and say, an instant message internally and say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? I want to hear your thoughts about this. So I think the virtual situation helped me a lot to collaborate with others and build relationships with people that I may not have that relationship that I have today, thanks to the pandemic. So there's a silver lining within the pandemic in my case.
Well, there is, and that's a crucial one. I would add into my experience, since I'm sitting up here in Northwest Connecticut, as you recall, it's out here in the country, and the fact that over the last 2.5 years, I'm able to do what we're doing right now, and meeting new people, going back and meeting people I've known and respected like you, and being able to collaborate with Peter Vale, which I mentioned, creating a podcast. And now collaborating with my editor to finish the book that Peter started. Now it's David Fearon and Peter Vale. All of that because of this one thing called Zoom or its equivalent. And that's very encouraging. The other part is that as you are moving toward the next phase of how you're going to be doing business, you can blend the two, can't you? You can have very quick access to folks up here in Hartford or out in St. Paul, if that's what you need. Mm-hmm. You can also, with your potential or actual insureds, you can quickly connect with them, or even on a scheduled basis. Whereas it used to be getting into a car, driving, parking, and that time we now realize is so precious.
Yes.
So we have more time for the rest of our lives that we love. Like, as I heard before we started recording, there's a 7-year-old Chihuahua in your life who loves it when you come home.
Exactly. Yes, you have a good point. I think work-life balance is very important for me, and I think you made a great point about having quick access to others and customers, and in our case made a huge difference. And I'll tell you why, because the customers that we manage are overseas. So we cannot simply get into a car and drive. We have to go into an airplane and coordinate. So just testing or calling a customer and say, hey, do you have a minute to talk about your request, your bond request? And there will always be welcome, the surety business. So it made a huge difference for our business for the past 2 years.
So you insure you have some of your insureds in Puerto Rico, some of your construction there, and then in the Virgin Islands. Now to Puerto Rico for a moment, it's been close to 3 years since the hurricane?
Yes, it's been 2017, right? So it's been a few years now since
more than a few years.
Hurricane Maria. Yeah.
And so that the construction requirements in that part of our country must have been enormous.
Yes.
All kinds of rebuilding and so forth. How are they doing right now?
I think the people of Puerto Rico have recovered. They're very resilient. They had 2 hurricanes, both Irma and then Maria.
Yeah, that's right.
Devastating for, it hit me both at a professional and personal level because my family lives there. But yes, people are doing much better. And there is a lot of hurricane recovery efforts that need to be done. That's going to take years. Some of them are happening, but they still have a lot of work to do. And the dynamics of the marketplace, particularly in Puerto Rico, always keep us busy and learning a lot because everything changes so quickly. But since 2017, Puerto Rico have been struggling, but they're coming back, slowly but surely.
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear that, and I hope your mom is faring well.
Yes, she's doing fine. After Maria, I have made the decision to send her with my sister. Not too far from you, by the way. She's right now she's in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
With my sister, although it's against her will, because she'd rather be in Puerto Rico. But I'd rather have her, with my sister for now, because quite frankly, things could be difficult for her down there.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Given her health profile, I think it will be best. No, she might go back to Puerto Rico. I would say she misses her home and her garden and her dog. So we'll see how that goes.
You're wonderful, and your sister is wonderful to help. Well, Cesar, we've talked a lot, and I probably talked a little more than I wanted to about me, but I'd like to know if there's one more thing you'd like to put into this conversation and this record of your success and your practice. What might it be?
Yes, Dr. Perrin, I think, Travelers obviously is a great company and a leader in the insurance industry. But one thing that I would say about my job is that we, as underwriter in bond and construction services, we offer a promise to the customer. We offer a promise to that owner who wants to build, whether it's a hospital or a gas station or a school, to make sure that my client, which is a general contractor, will complete that project in accordance with the contract documents and the contract terms and conditions. So the fact that we get involved in a project that comes out of nothing from scratch, and then you see a hospital being built to help others, or you see a school being built to educate children, for me, that's the most rewarding situation. And that's why I feel like my job is always fun, because every contractor is different and every project is different. And by talking to the contractors and just being a listener about how they're going to approach the project, man, you learn so much. And that's what I feel like has kept me here for the last 14 years. And most importantly, the meaning behind it. And I think if you have a purpose in life, and that purpose is to give you happiness, you got to be happy. You only have one life.
Yeah, we've learned that. That's for sure.
That's what makes a difference for me, at least in this job, which at the beginning, I thought it was going to be not for me, to be honest. But today I can share that I love what I do, and I love to see a project going from A to Z, and then you get to see it completed. So why not?
Yeah, and it is so satisfying that one day, as you're happen to be in the vicinity, and you say, "Well, I think I'd like to go over and take a look at that hospital, or watch run by the school and see it doing what it's supposed to do." You know that because you and that contractor, your company, through you, have made a previous commitment to do it right, do it as promised, make sure that it's always going to have you and your company's mark on it, even if it's never on the name of the building. So that's a long extension of your service, if you will, in this business, to be able to say you have a permanent record of your clients.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's a small piece of the whole project, but it means something. It means something to me. It means something to the client. It means something with the fact that we took the time to listen to them and approve the bond so they can do the project. And most importantly, the human touch. There's a lot of human touch going on, and that makes a difference. And people want to do business with people they like, and that makes a difference too. And that's why we enjoy what we do.
Makes a great difference. Did you have any questions of me before we wrap?
I would say, obviously you have been in this business, being a management and organizational professor for decades, and a great professor. What advice would you give to somebody like me that is in my mid-career path, and obviously way more to learn? But I love to hear your advice on that. And anybody that's hearing this podcast.
Well, we believe that management is an open question that'll keep you learning and guessing and discovering for the rest of your life. So whether you do what you're doing is managing, by the way, even if you you do carry a title like that, but managing overall is being thoughtful about what an organization is meaning to your coworkers and doing your best to keep it on an even keel, just like you're expecting your contractors to do for their projects. So you're going to learn management for the rest of your career anyway. But my world, the academic world, does have master's degrees in business or now more specialized master's degrees. And the trend has happened particularly because of pandemic that you can get an awful lot of the coursework, if not all of it, done online, and from very fine schools. And you might be able to blend that into your lifestyle. And remember, back at the beginning of this conversation, you were working 26 hours a day. And so you can put the work in, and I know you have the curiosity to want to take the courses, but it's not for everyone, and it is expensive unless your company, and I believe Travelers does, can help out with that cost. It's a big burden to add to your expenses. But I think you'd be a great student in a master's program.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. It just I'm very invested in my role, and it takes a lot of time. Well, look, I'm still in the office. It's 7:08, and I'll probably be here for another hour or so till I finish my analysis.
Well, I'm going to be kind to you then, Cesar, as you've been kind to me, and I'm going to let you finish that analysis so you can get some sleep. But again, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.